There are more castles than I remember, that's for sure, along the green between towns, and more of them cordoned off than I remember as well. Layers of civilization wrap and obscure nearly every bit of stone along this path, intact enough to be called a proper name, given a sign, and charged for admission. Some have lines of cars to enter. She would have hated it, even more than me. I pull over at what could be called a castle, more of a single quarried cube with half-crumbled ramparts, new doors, and a roofless courtyard open to the sky. This one has fewer visitors, fewer to remember what they've seen. Only a handful of cars sit askew on unmarked grass out front. A small queue waits at the entrance. It should move quickly. In and out, enough for me to see and know what's changed. My feet scrunch on gravel, strangely out of place with the dirt it's been tossed on. An older man waits in front of me, scrubbing his balding head and frowning at the queue. He puts his hat back on, notices I'm there, and half turns to me. Nothing's free anymore, is it? Yeah, I was thinking pretty much the same thing. He glances at me and makes eye contact. You American? I don't attempt to repress my sigh. Yeah, you Irish? Nah, local charm's rubbed off, has it? Charm might be pushing it. Oh, it's definitely rubbed off then. He pauses and nods to himself. You know, I used to come here when I was a lad. This exact castle? Kirk. I'm sorry? It's more like a kirk. Like the captain, not a castle. I see. Different time back then. Look at this now. Treating our history like a museum, keeping it separate, pretending it's not a part of us. Yeah, it wasn't like this before, even 10 years ago when I was here. Aye. Now it's all this rubbish. Rope it off with those banisters, queue us up, and get some plexiglass to keep the man in the booth safe. Tell us where to step, what to touch, where to look. Get some bloody pamphlets and guides and silly hats for the damn tourists. Present company excluded, of course. Naturally. We both shuffle forward a spot. When I was young, I would come and go as I want, you know. Run around the walls, play in the grass. Lived over there a ways. Paying at the door? Ridiculous. No fear of lawsuits or anything like that back then. No one would disgrace themselves by even suggesting it. You do something foolish, you get a beating at home. That's it. Worse if your neighbors knew. And now, no, nothing's free anymore. Not even death. And make no mistake, that's what this is. A skeleton. We're taking a tour through a skeleton. One more step forward, both of us. I say nothing in response, nothing to carry on the conversation, but the man keeps talking to me, by me, with me, through me. I don't know, it doesn't matter. I wonder how long he's kept these thoughts to himself. It's a damn shame. We pretend our history doesn't actually belong to us, like it can be owned. And if it can be owned, it can be sold. That's what it means to sell something, doesn't it? It belongs to you. But how can you sell something that's free? This kirk belongs to Ireland, not the government. Big difference. Thing is, once the ticket booth goes up, that's when people come. Nobody paid attention before. We all make the whole thing work, you and me included. Something in the man's candor and speech triggers sights and smells I hadn't thought of since the airport. Things I try to not remember. Counters and forms on clipboards next to pens on chains. Plastic chairs that leave black skid marks on cheap tiles. The sterile stench and flat lights. Halls and the cadence of the nurse's feet escorting me like a tourist. Waiting. Endless waiting and staring at white walls. You figured you'd get more freedom as life goes on, wouldn't you? You figure things would make more sense as you get older. I remember thinking the same now. Naive. No offense. Into the haze of the room. All the beeps and machines. White sheets on white beds. Near white curtains on white walls. All fused in the glow like heaven's poor copy. Terms that grow from frightening to familiar. The bed that tilts with a button. The nurse that's called with a button. The morphine administered with a button. There's no grace anymore, is there? Grace in man, it's all dried out, snipped off and parceled. Every last bit of a person. Spirit most of all, like this kirk. And in the end, what's waiting for us? Same thing as always. Fear of death is the greatest hoax of the modern age. That's what my Meredith used to say. It's a godless time it is. Thing is, I can't say it's ever been any better. That sounds like something my wife would have. I stop myself from finishing the sentence, or rather, grief crushes the remainder and tugs it out of my chest and tosses it on the ground like a dead rabbit. The old man turns to me and sees my expression. The line moves forward, but he doesn't. He stares at me straight in the eye. Above us, it starts to mist. Remember, there's no point when you can no longer choose. Remember that. You can walk right up to the edge, but it's you who will jump. Remember. I open my mouth to speak, but I'm at a loss. The mist starts to coat my face with beads. There's no one behind me, so I can't pressure him to move. I don't even know if I want him to. A strange smile pushes his creased cheeks up into little sack shapes. He reaches out and claps me on the shoulder. Well, I'm just jabbering now. Just remember, lad. If nothing else, remember. He turns back around and steps forward in line. I wait a moment and then stalk to my car, hoping he doesn't notice. Just remember, yeah. If nothing else, I do remember. That's the problem. I remember the IV drip, its needle thrust deep, the protrusion of her flesh built around it like a callus. They look for new spots like she's an addict and they her dealer. Uncollapsed vessels, the pinch in her cheeks sunk past her cheekbones. The pinched brow of doctors and their explanations. So many explanations. The pinched brows of strangers and the tales of blood relations as they shake my hand, one after another. I'm sorry for your loss. I leave the kirk, replaying the old man's words, the exhortation they contain, the warning against annihilation. But if remembering is pain, and healing also, then pain is healing, and I don't know what I can do. Rain blows on my windshield. I drive further and further still. A dark blue begins to swallow the sky. Another bed and breakfast, the green lamb, and calligraphic scrolls on swollen split wood. Awaiting my body in a bed near the roof where rain strikes hardest. Pain drives into my skull like a corkscrew. The pills are long gone. The sheets are cold next to me, and sleep refuses to come, and with it, the nightmare of dreams and the darkness they show, deeper than midnight above.